You're choosing confusion. You've been here for 5 months. It's easier to be confused than to commit, but it's easier to stay there because lots of times it is a legitimate excuse rather than committing, because once you commit, you're accountable. Because people talk about all the things you're supposed to do, but none of the things you're supposed to cut out. And the reason why you can't do what you're supposed to do is because you're doing the things that you're not supposed to do. Do you want me to share what those are? Or
Yep, go ahead. I mean, the people are lucky they're over here getting a masterclass. No one
I give it all away for free anyway, so it's fine. So the 5 C's are: you got to cut out.
You're listening to the Build Your Vision podcast, a podcast series about maneuvering the ups and downs of building a life that you're proud of, captured in real time. A community where dreamers become doers, and doers become world changers. Let's go.
What's up? What's up? This is the Build Your Vision podcast, where we have conversations about clarity. I'm your host, Clee, the visionary. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever set out to have a goal, a project, a vision board, a vision itself for the year, and you start executing on that goal? You start executing on that project. But as time goes on and you're actually taking the steps, you start to get a little bit more confused. You start to get indecisive, even paralyzed, just overwhelmed by all the decisions you have to make, all the skills that you have to learn, all these different things. You start questioning whether this is the right thing to do, or you get distracted and start working on another project, or you feel like you're just not consistent enough and you get frustrated with yourself. If that has ever been you, you definitely want to listen to this episode where actually I get interviewed. I'm not doing the interviewing in this episode. I get interviewed by coach and attorney Jamila Moore on the Journey to More podcast. Look, if you have ever felt like you want to get more clarity for your life and for your vision, you definitely want to listen to this episode. Let's get into it.
One of the things that kind of tripped me up when I was starting out was that clarity piece. So how do people even deal with the fact or deal with wrestling for clarity in their own life to get their vision right?
Yeah, it could be a very arduous, laborious, frustrating process, right? Because you feel like you're like, oh, I got it at one moment. And then the next moment you're like, I know nothing. I don't know what I'm talking about, right? And that's par for the course, right? Because first of all, we're always evolving as human beings and individuals, right? We're always developing into newer and better versions of ourselves. So as you develop, your vision will also develop. I always teach that there are like 3 things that we kind of go by when it comes to looking forward to the future. The first one is your why, right? And I always say the why doesn't change. The why is the purpose or meaning behind your goal or your dream. And the why, that hardly ever changes, because the why is determined by all the things that happen in your past, like your environment, your upbringing, your experiences, your encounters, right? Then your vision is the painted picture of your goal or your dream. Now, that can fluctuate a little bit based on what season you're in life, or what your values happen to be or priorities happen to be at that point in time. But it doesn't really go off too much, because the vision was given to you by God. So it's there, but you might get a little bit more clear in this area, a little bit more clear in this area, until it comes into full picture. And then you have a mission. Your mission is the plan for your dream. That could change all the time. The mission could be this today, it could be this tomorrow, based on how you want to get to where you're going. So those are like the 3 things. So like, your vision can change, and the clarity that goes into that process is also always fluctuating. But the main thing that I believe helps people the most when it comes to getting clear is being honest. Lots of times we aren't even aware of the true version of ourselves because we get so used to being someone that we aren't every day. That like key part of like releasing all the different, you're making a face.
No, because you need to go back to that and just stay here and unpack that statement you just said. Like, yeah.
It's honesty. And it's not even honesty because, okay, yeah, we're supposed to be honest people telling others the truth, right? But how many times do you still tell yourself lies every single day? There's so many things that go into that. Some lies, it's not our fault. We're handed lies, right? Some lies you're handed by your parents, you're handed by your school, you're handed by your church, right? Some lies you pick up, a friend or a counselor or a teacher or somebody that is an authority figure hands you a belief system that may or may not be based in truth, right? So you pick that up. And then other ones you just make up. You make them up because not for any like malicious reason, but you're trying to protect yourself. You have
Mhm.
to create certain realities in your mind in order to keep yourself safe, right? But that doesn't make them true at the end of the day. So when it comes to getting super clear, like getting honest with yourself, is this what I really believe? Is this what I really want? Is this what I really desire? Despite what others might think about it, despite what even my family or friends might think about it, despite what I think about it is even possible, right? Because we have our own limiting beliefs. At the end of the day, if I had a magic wand I could wave, what is it that I truly desire? And that first thought that comes
Mhm.
to your head, it
Mm.
might take a little bit, but when it comes, don't give yourself any time to start rationalizing and justifying and trying to work out, because that's when all the other things start to hinder what you really truly get clear about. But that is the key. The biggest thing is just honesty with self. What is it truly at the bottom of the bucket that I really, really desire?
That's so good. Being honest with ourselves. And you're making me think about, okay, when we get to that place of honesty and maybe we're clear on our vision, the thing that could trip us up is the relationships that we have around us when they haven't done the same work or they don't
Mm,
have the same belief system.
yeah.
And so, how have you navigated that? Because I'm pretty sure, like in college, people are not even thinking on your level. So you are a trailblazer, you are a trendsetter, and you are like light years ahead of your some of your peers. And then you're like having to navigate that these are the relationships that you're around.
Yeah, that is definitely challenging for sure. And it can happen no matter what season of life that you're in. No matter what you do, when you have a vision or a vision is given to you, one of the probably the second thing that happens, the first thing is usually okay, you have an intention and then chaos ensues because
Mm,
every Myron Golden always says, after every intention follows disruption, right? Even when God said, let us create the earth, the next verse just says, and there was chaos over the waters and they were void, right? So like if God can't escape it, then you have no chance, right? But the second thing is separation. So Abraham had to get away. Joseph had to get away. Jacob had to get away. Jesus had to get away, right? He came back. They were like, you not him, bro. He had to
yeah.
get back away. So separation is just something that comes with the territory of
Mm,
having vision. Whatever your vision is going to be for 2024 to keep you moving forward to the place that you feel God has called you to be, is going to require you to separate from some people, some places, or some postures that you have, right?
mm,
And it's hard. It's definitely hard. Do not expect to be understood. Be surprised when you are. Like,
mm,
be pleasantly surprised when you are. Dave Ramsey always says, and he's talking about finances, but it applies to everything. He said, I got to live like nobody else so I could live like nobody else.
mm.
And that just comes with it. And sometimes it's difficult, but you know that you are not doing it alone. You could find tribes and other people who are of the same mindset that you are, and ultimately, you are not doing it for the gratification or approval of man. I believe Paul says, if I was doing this for the approval of man, would I be doing it for the approval of God? I don't think so, right? He said, but I'm doing this for the approval of God. So bump y'all. You know what I'm saying? So like, and it's not that we don't care, but we should care more about what God has to say than what man has to say.
No, so good. We have to prepare for separation, separation from some people, separation from some places, and separation from some postures. And right now, you are speaking to me as
Me too.
God is just doing a whole new thing in my life. Not only like moving me to a whole new city and state, very, very quickly, but also then just establishing me in, the new journey of who you are. I was listening to, I call him my African uncle, but he is an apostle out of Abuja, which is in Nigeria.
Mhm.
And he was just saying that right now, this is an opportune time for us to really sit and settle with the fact that, like, over time, because we are faithful, God will reveal to us new levels of vision and new levels of identity for ourselves.
Yeah.
And so, as we are navigating vision for 24, we have to understand, and it's like vision as a part of this grand scheme of things from our maker, and not necessarily this like checklist for us to get things that we want. How have you distinguished that or coached people through them basically just having a checklist for their desires?
In my Build Your Vision course, we talk about the three things I said earlier: why, vision, and mission. And the first thing I say about a vision is not about you. It's about others, right? So this is how I define a vision. A vision is something in the world that you see that doesn't exist, but you believe it should. Something that isn't, but it should be. So an example like of this would be, let's say, Steve Jobs, right? He's like, okay, every person should have a computer in their home, but they don't, right? Or Elon Musk, cars should complement the environment, not harm it, but they don't. Or Nike, everyone should have the ability to be an athlete, but they don't have that opportunity. So that's what a vision is. It's not, I want this house, I want this car, I want this blah, blah, blah. Check, 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 check. Okay, I fulfilled the vision. It's you filling a void in society that you see is open, and you are the one equipped to fill it. So that's how I kind of differ, because I know that's usually the first place. And that's why that's one of the first things I say is like, before you start saying what type of house, car, wife, husband, whatever you want, this is what we're talking about of what a vision is. Now, all those other things will be added unto you, but that is not the thing, right? And it's not bad to want those things, but that's kind of how I go about avoiding that, like that checklist mentality.
The thing that stuck out to me with what you were saying is how scary vision can be. You're like, oh my gosh, I see this. How in the heck do I even start with step one?
Mm-hmm.
So I know you're the king of visionary, the visionary guy, right? So how do you help people like start to walk out that big thing that they just saw?
Yeah. Well, first of all, that's a great sign. If you are saying, where in the world do I even start? How is this even possible? That means that you actually are doing something that is bigger than you, which is the main thing, because you realize you can't do it by yourself, which is huge. Because if you think, oh, I think I can accomplish that, then you're already starting off on the wrong foot, because you're not leaning on God and you're not leaning on others. And that is a formula for frustration and burnout. And then after that, okay, I have this grand vision. Where do I begin? Well, the first thing I always say is you have to get clear.
Mm-hmm.
Clear on who you are, whose you are, and who you're called to serve, right? Because even though we could see the thing, we might not be crystal clear on what those things are. One of the two separators of people who are successful visionaries and unsuccessful visionaries, because before I talked about the difference between people who are primarily dreamers and visionaries, and that thing was clarity. But between successful visionaries and unsuccessful visionaries, the key differentiator I've seen through talking to like over 75 visionaries is that they're clear on the things that make the vision possible, not just the vision itself, right? Because there's no shortage of vision. People have it, right? They're like, I have this, I have it, I can see it, I know what it looks like, blah, blah, blah. But how clearly do you see the things that make the vision possible, though? That is people and yourself, your identity. And we talk about this whole thing in one of my, in fact, we're in the middle of doing a challenge I'm doing right now called the Amplify Your Voice Challenge. And we talked about this on the first day. History and identity. These are key things that successful visionaries have, because history teaches you about people and teaches you about God, and identity teaches you about who God says you are. So those things I would get crystal clear on first before you start trying to build anything, because if you don't have those things, you'll go nowhere quickly and everywhere slowly. So that's what you want to establish. Then next, not that many people talk about this. You want to get clear on what you don't want to do.
Ooh, yeah.
Dan Coe calls this the anti-vision, right? So who do you not want to become? What do you not want to do that is usually a lot easier to determine before you get crystal clear on what it is that what the vision you are your building is. But also the things that you need to eliminate. I always say there are 5 C's that you have to eliminate, because people talk about all the things you're supposed to do, but none of the things you're supposed to cut out. And the reason why you can't do what you're supposed to do is because you're doing the things that you're not supposed to do. So do you want me to share what those are? Or
Yep, go ahead. I mean, the people are lucky they're over here getting a master class. No one
I give it all away for free anyway, so it's fine. So the 5 C's are: you got to cut out confusion. Lots of times I heard this from Donald Miller, but he says we choose to be confused because it's easier to be confused than to commit. And when I heard that, I said, oh my God, oh my goodness. Like that pierced me in my chest, because I was like, that is so true. It's so, I'm still figuring it out. I'm doing some A/B testing. I'm still doing my ass campaign. I'm trying. It's like, you're choosing confusion. You've been here for 5 months. Okay. Like, you can move past this, but it's easier to stay there because lots of times it is a legitimate excuse rather than committing, because once you commit, you're accountable. So first thing you got to eliminate is confusion. Second thing you got to eliminate is conflict. Now, this can be kind of difficult, but conflict is anything that provides friction to your vision. Right. So friction could exist in the form of your environment, your relationships, friendships, significant others, possibly. Friction can be the things that you're consuming. Friction can be the habits that you have that are contradicting what you say, profess out your mouth that you want. All these things are conflict that needs to be eliminated. Now, of course, you cannot eliminate every conflict, right? You can't get rid of your kids. You can't, if you live with roommates or something, like, I mean, you can move, I guess, but you probably don't want to do that in the middle of your lease or whatever it is. So like, you have to find ways to eliminate it as much as possible. So if that's you getting up at 3:30 in the morning because that's the only time you can have by yourself, then that might be what you have to do to make your vision a reality. But you have to eliminate as much conflict as possible. So you have confusion, you have conflict, then you have content. Now, this is usually strange because people, especially that have 2024 vision, content's usually in there. I gotta start posting. I gotta, start letting people know what I'm working on. I gotta build an audience, right? So they're like, why would you cut out content? Content's great. You should be making content, but what is your creation to consumption ratio? That is the thing. So I'm like, content is good. I love consuming content, but the thing is, when you are creating more, you have less time to consume. Wow. So you want to keep that creation to consumption ratio balanced. And when I say balance, I mean at least 2-to-1 or 3-to-1, right? So you're creating more than you're consuming. And that helps you not, one, get in overload mode because you're consuming so much information, you don't have enough time to get it back out, but also eliminates distraction because lots of times you find yourself in the wormhole of, you're like, how did I get on a movie about how bananas are actually poisoning the chimpanzee population in Fiji? Like, this makes no sense. And you're just wasting time because it's not contributing to your vision. So that's why that's there. Okay, fourth one is cockiness. Right? For some reason, and this usually happens with real smart people, which I know everyone watching this probably falls in that category if you're watching this type of content. You, for some reason, even though you've never done something before, feel like you have a better way of doing it than the person who has done it multiple times over. And I don't care if the person's 3 years old. If she knows how to play the piano, you better listen. Like, type of thing, right? So I always teach this is a AAA sequence, which is
another framework, y'all.
I'm telling you, another framework. The first one is to accept, right? Accept what the information is. Most people don't have a problem with that. The second one is to assimilate, right? So actually to incorporate it like into your being and be like, okay, this is actually what I'm supposed to be doing. And the third one is to actually apply it. So like, most people never really get to the third one because they add a fourth A onto it, but they do it out of order. The fourth A is okay, but they try to adjust.
Mm.
And they're like, yeah, I know they said to post 3 times on Twitter a day, and this is how you, but they don't understand that I'm not this. I run this type of business. So it's like, you are, I know that you believe you're a special snowflake, but you're not that unique. Well, you are. You're unique just like everybody else. So, like, do not go away from what those who have proven knowledge can help you with. Now, it's perfectly fine to adjust after you've done the application, because now you can make adjustments and can say, I follow through. This is the tweaks I need to make, rather than I make the adjustments. I don't know if I actually follow through whether it would have worked. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, gotta eliminate cockiness. I know that you're smart. I know that you have done lots of things that have been successful before, but in this specific area that you're looking for help, you're going to need to eliminate cockiness so you can build your vision. And lastly, this one's way longer than I thought I was going to. I'm sorry. Is concealed vices. This is something that people don't talk about a lot.
Mm.
Concealed vices. This is how I define concealed vices. Anything that you enjoy doing in the moment and hate right after the moment.
Mm.
So I don't know what your concealed vice is. I don't know whether it is eating ice cream straight out the bucket, or whether it is scrolling on social media for a few hours, or whether it is numbing yourself watching Netflix. I don't know if it is promiscuous relationships. I don't know if it's pornography. I don't know what it is, right? But we all have these concealed vices that either are hidden so no one knows that we have them, or
Mm-hmm.
2, they're acceptable in society, right?
Ooh.
So, like, eating a lot of sugar is like acceptable in society. It's like, oh, you just have a sweet tooth. When in reality, it's like, oh, well, you're killing yourself. You like, right? Like, sugar is just killing you, bro. But it's acceptable, so that we think it's okay, right? Or whatever it is, binging Netflix, right? It's like, that's really not a great use of your time, especially if it's not going toward what your vision is, but it's become an acceptable behavior. And these are things that we enjoy during the moment, and then afterward we're disgusted with ourselves because we're like, why am I doing this? This is not helping me become the person that I want to be. So those 5 C's you got to cut out: conflict, content, confusion, cockiness, and concealed vices. And then that's when you can start getting into the phase of development, and developing the skills that you need in order to build your vision, like communication, or things like frameworks to express what you're trying to do, right? So I just spent about 5 frameworks, like just in this conversation. But you start working out those things so that when you're talking to people, you can actually help them rather than just help them in theory. But this is the kind of process that you have to go through. It's a lot of ground foundation that I teach that most people don't talk about. They're just like, big audacious hairy goal, go after it. And it's like, well, the reason why it's 3 years after you set the goal and you're still trying to get the New Year's resolution to work is because you haven't done the groundwork of becoming the person that could do the thing. So I'll stop there because, this could go on forever, because of this. I would just talk forever about that.
I think it could go on forever. And one of the many takeaways that I have right here is we've normalized silent killers. Like when you broke that
100%.
down of like how we've said, oh, I just got a sweet tooth. Oh,
Yeah.
let's binge watch Netflix. Oh, let's do this, let's do that. Like, and these are the things that are vision killers.
Yeah.
And that keeps you in this perpetual state of having that same goal year after year or month after month, and not really doing that groundwork. I know this is helping so many people right now, and so many people are going to be set up to at least do vision differently. I want to lean into this cockiness piece. And I feel like I had a season in life where, because I had always done the things, God like gave me like a little sucker punch and be like, you need me. Because once you get to a place where you create a formula or a framework and it works, you may become cocky and think that you were the one doing everything. How do you kind of like work through that and just make sure that you have like a check and balance?
Whoo. Yeah, I didn't even touch on that, but like, right, cockiness of like between you and God, right? That's a whole thing. Pride is literally the most lethal of all sins. Like, I know all sins are equal, right? No one is greater than the other, but if you want to get to the root of all sin, it's literally the very first one that was ever committed in history is pride.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, it's the one that plagues us the most. And we half the time we're not even aware of it. And God will go through extreme lengths to remind us that look, everything on the earth is the Lord's, right? You literally are a steward and renter of everything. You own nothing. And I'm honestly still like learning that lesson over and over again of humility. And I do know that one thing that has helped with keeping me grounded is just making sure that the vision, like I said earlier, is out of reach, right?
Mm-hmm.
I said, what's the first thing that comes to your head when you wave that magic wand, right? Before you let all the different things, because lots of times we start rationalizing, well, the thought that came was this, but this seems realistic. So I'm going to say this, right? But if you take off that filter and have that honesty, usually it's something that you are not capable of yourself. And honestly, the thing that he has in mind for you is exceedingly abundantly above anything that you could even think of, right? Oh, there was a quote. Let me see if I can find this quote real quick. I heard Tim Ross say this a few weeks ago, and I was like, yo, that's profound. He said, if you can ask or think it, that's not how God is going to do it. I
Ooh.
said, Tim, you better.
Woo-hoo!
I
Okay.
was like,
No,
what?
no, this is so pertinent right now because God is literally training me like, Jamila, if this is the way you think it's going to be, I guarantee you it's not going to be that way. So like, I'm like, okay, God, help me just to like stop with these, because I will go down a whole train ride, have built the entire plan. And I'm like, you've proven time and time again, you do not work like that. Like you just
100%.
don't work like that.
Right.
So whew, that's man.
Right. Because the purpose of everything, like why we were created, was for his glory in the first place. He created
Mm-hmm.
us because he wanted to. It was a creative project that he wanted to enjoy and gave him glory. Why do you create stuff? Why do you write things? Why do you sculpt things? Why do you draw things? Because it's something that's inside of you that you want to put outside of you, and you want to enjoy it, and you want others to enjoy it. And you love when others enjoy it because it gives you glory, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're made in his image. It's the exact same way. So he's not going to let you do anything that gives you glory, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if you do, it's going to be short lived. You're going to come back down the mountain real fast. But that's so important. And honestly, it's a little frustrating because I be having some good ideas. I know you have some like, oh, like that will be so dope. That's what I want to do. And in the back of your head, you're like, okay, but that's probably not how it's about to go down. And honestly, it checks me because it makes me sad sometimes. And it
Mm.
reminds me, it's like, okay, well, what's your God, the vision or God himself? So if I am sad when the vision isn't what I thought it was going to be, that shows that I'm worshiping it instead of worshiping the God that gave me it. So it's like a check. I was like, okay, I have to let go of romanticizing this thing and remember that God is the one that even gave me the mind to have this thought. It belongs to him anyway.
It
Right.
belongs to him anyway.
Yeah.
I think we could probably go on and on and on about this topic and all these different things. But when we're coming to a place of, all right, we have our God vision and we're ready to start to do the groundwork. What are like the hidden dangers outside of like the conflict and our environment and stuff that really keep people from attaining their vision? Like those that start with the momentum, right? They probably went to your website, joined the challenge, got some coaching, and they're like rolling through, and then they like hit that roadblock. How do we navigate that piece?
Yeah. I always think this is why I talk about the one thing that I talk about more than vision is clarity. I always say that the devil's biggest strategy against us is confusion. It stops us dead in our tracks. Like we think we have a time problem. It's like, no, you have a clarity problem, because if you knew exactly what to do, you would just do it. But since you don't know what to do, you put it off, right? We do it all the time. You don't know what to write on the paper, you put it off. If you knew exactly what you were going to write, you would just write it. That's a huge thing that I know gets in the way. And the confusion is like a catalyst to all these other different types of reactions of like anxiety and procrastination and evasion and self-sabotage and all these other different things that block us from our vision. There's a quote from Jamie Winship. I shared it during our challenge this week that is really, really powerful that I could think can kind of speak to this. And it talks about the devil's strategy against us, against our visions as visionaries. And it says the enemy, Satan, has a strategy against you. His number one strategy is to blind you to the truth of your name, identity, and destiny. The strategy is for you to live a mediocre life. A mediocre life, not a bad life, not a lesser life. Just the Lord is good all the time God is good. Life, I'm in the land of the living. Life. And die in false disbelief, having never known who you are or what you were created to be. That's his number one strategy. I read that joint about 15 times when I said, what? To live a mediocre life and die in false belief, thinking that this is all there is. And I feel like that is often the biggest thing that gets in our way. We are literally blind to the true identity of ourselves and our destiny. And one of the biggest ways he could do that is confusion, in my opinion, because we feel like there's such a gap between who we are now and what our vision is, and we're just like, I don't know how to get there. But that's the point, and that's why you have to depend on God, and He'll guide you along the way.
Wow, I would ask for a final thought, but I think that is the final thought.
Yeah, because drop the mic on that one.
Right.